What is up, you fantasy football addicts, you fan guy addicts, you fanatics? Welcome to another season of the Ultimate Fan Guy. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is fantasy football, obviously. We're going to be looking at our beginning of the week waiver priority picks. I realized that last year I was giving you guys a lot of information on how to play daily fantasy and how to best sculpt your team. But I think we should start taking a look at, some season long fantasy stuff and start giving you the tidbits and important notes from yesterday in case you have a life and aren't like me and don't not have a life and have all your time to spend looking at fantasy football stuff. So let me do the work for you, and I'm going to present you with this episode brought to you by Azkaban Prison. So we're going to talk about all the highlights, or a lot of the highlights from yesterday. I'm going to go team by team and kind of give you some important information. We're not going to get into all the detailed stats. This is going to be just the primary stats for fantasy football purposes, but we're going to be not looking at some of the more advanced metrics because that's just getting into too much. We're going to keep it simple. So we're going to look at, again, recap yesterday and see how everything went and kind of go down the line team by team and let you know what you need to know to get in on your waiver wire pickups and to kind of give you an idea of injuries and just kind of the status of things as they look after week one from my perspective. We are going to start with the Thursday night matchup. We're going to take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs. So, in this matchup, there were a few takeaways from the Chiefs. First of all, obviously, there were, I think the most important thing that we need to talk about from this game was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This kid looks like the real deal, 100%. He went, I believe 17 for 130 or something like that. Kid was doing great. He did get held up on a few goal line touches, which was a little concerning. But ultimately, for a rookie debut without an offseason, this kid looked amazing. If you picked him in the first round of your draft, you're feeling pretty good right now. If you picked him up in a dynasty league or a keeper league or anything like that, you're feeling pretty good right now. This kid looks good, and this was without even using him in the passing game. This guy is great in passing, and they didn't even use him in the passing game. So CEH, first takeaway from Kansas City, he looks like the real deal. Mahomes doing what he does, just putting up fantastic numbers. We already knew that was going to happen, or we suspected it. This confirmed it. Another interesting takeaway from KC was that Sammy Watkins actually was the target leader here with 9 targets. Kelsey and Hill both only had 6 targets. This was without targeting CEH in the backfield. So my big takeaway, which isn't a huge takeaway, it was kind of something we already suspected, is that Mahomes is great, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is great, Kelsey's still doing his thing, Sammy Watkins still doing his thing, Tyreek Hill still doing his thing. The one interesting thing that I do want to note here is there are a lot of mouths to feed on this offense, and not everybody's going to get fed every game. I mean, Mahomes is great, but he's great enough to literally produce 4 or 5 fantasy studs every game. So, great offense to be tied to, but be aware that your guy on this offense might not have the most optimal game. Obviously, my 2 favorite players on this team, bar none, are going to be Patrick Mahomes, number 1, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 2. Those are the 2 guys that I think are going to get for sure volume every game. I think Watkins, Hill, Kelsey, those guys are going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. So that's my take on the Chiefs. Texans. So my takeaway from the Houston Texans, this is going to be David Johnson, man. He looked legit. He didn't look too bad. He looked like David Johnson back in the day. So, I'm still not sure it was a good trade for the Texans to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. But, David Johnson actually looked okay. And Deshaun Watson looked mostly competent without DeAndre Hopkins. So the Texans, my main takeaways from that was that David Johnson looked legit, and he is going to be looking to probably get a lot more volume than Duke Johnson, despite what preseason reports might have said. Um, we look at Will Fuller got 10 targets, which is awesome for Will Fuller's fantasy prospects. We knew he was going to step into a more established role, but he actually did get 10 targets. The next closest on the team was Brandon Cooks at 5. And so Will Fuller looks to be a pretty good fantasy asset for the season, as does David Johnson. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to peg him inside the top 8 quarterbacks for the year. I don't think he has a top 3 campaign, but he also looks okay. And he had a pretty decent numbers considering. They did have a lot of chances with the ball, so we're going to keep our eye on this Houston team. But ultimately, Houston looks okay. Fuller, big takeaway. Fuller, 10 targets. David Johnson looking legit. Those are our big takeaways from Houston. Moving on, Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks. Our big takeaways from Seattle's game. Russell Wilson, man, he went 31 for 35, 4 TDs. 2 to Chris Carson, 1 to Greg Olsen, and 1 to DK Metcalf. So, I mean, Russell Wilson looked great in this game. He looked like a guy who's going to go for the league lead in passing this year. This is the guy. If you have him on your team and you weren't able to get Mahomes or Jackson, Russell Wilson is going to look like the exact number, the exact guy you wanted him to be when you drafted him. So, fantastic output here. Looking at our rushes from Seattle, it was interesting to note that Carlos Hyde actually carried the ball more than Chris Carson. A lot of people wouldn't realize that because Carson put up better numbers due to his receiving and his touchdowns. But Carlos Hyde actually recorded more touches in terms of handoffs, running plays than Chris Carson. This is notable, y'all. This is not unnotable. This is very important information because even though Chris Carson had a banger of a game, and it does look like Chris Carson's going to be their primary receiving back, which does give you a ton of value in PPR formats. The fact is, Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson are splitting touches. Chris Carson will get you obviously more because of his passing stats, but that's a little nerve-wracking. Had he not caught both those passing touchdowns, Chris Carson would not have had a great day. You probably would have lost your game if he won you your game. Target leaders on this team, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf both had 8 targets. So that looks good for, Metcalf's prospects, really. And Lockett's. I mean, we know Russell Wilson's a field general. He spreads the ball around. And so it looks like Lockett and Metcalf's value is going to be close, which I believe they were drafted within one or two rounds of each other. So I think everybody knew their values were going to be close, and it appears that it's going to be that way. I still like Lockett's upside personally a little bit more, but both these guys should have fantastic years, especially with Russell Wilson looking like he's going to play lights out after week 1. So that is our takeaway from Seattle. We're going to move on to Atlanta, the Falcons. So Atlanta, our takeaway here, Matt Ryan threw for 450 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matt Ryan had a big day, despite actually losing this game. Todd Gurley, he went 14 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. He obviously had 2 catches. So Gurley actually looks like he's going to be the mostly guy here, which we also kind of knew. But it's always good with the guys you have big questions on preseason like Gurley to see him go out there and produce even at a modest level, 4 yards a carry, getting involved in the passing games, getting a touchdown. It's good to see. So I'm encouraged about Todd Gurley and his, outlook for the year. Obviously, I don't think he's going to win any rushing titles this year, but he is going to be a solid RB2 for the year. Maybe low at RB1 depending on how they get it going. Other huge takeaway from this game. Okay, well, look, here's the thing. Atlanta had to throw the ball a ton. They had to throw the ball a ton because they were just getting mollywopped by Seattle. So I don't want to read too much into this next statistic, but it is definitely something we need to keep an eye on, and it's something worth noting. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage all had 12 targets. 12, 12, 12. Even split between Julio, Calvin, and Russell Gage. Who saw that coming? We knew Julio and Calvin really were going to be targeted a bunch. But the Russell Gage getting all those Austin Hooper targets, getting a lot of Gurley targets, I guess, out of the backfield. I'm not jumping on the Russell Gage hype train. I am not, if you're super light or whatever at receiver, like mega light in a 14-team league, sure, definitely a guy who picked up 12 targets. It's a guy you want. But temper your expectations on Russell Gage. Atlanta had to throw a bunch in this. I do think they're going to throw a bunch all year, but I don't think Russell Gage is going to get 12 targets every game. Matter of fact, I was a little more concerned to see him get that much for Julio and Calvin's fantasy outlook. Why is Russell Gage getting so many targets? That's weird. So those are my takeaways from the Falcons. Now we're going to go to from like one of the high scoring games to one of these Bush League games, and we're going to talk about the New York Jets. Wow, hot garbage, right? Super hot garbage. Yeah, they were hot garbage. But there are a few fantasy takeaways that we can get from this Jets game. Number one, Crowder. Jamison Crowder, 13 targets. That's good. I don't care what team you're on. I don't care how productive the team is. 13 targets in a PPR league is gold. If you got Crowder in like the 10th round or 9th round or 11th round where he was going in most drafts, you got to steal here because this guy is going to bring you wide receiver 2 or 3 value all year. He's not going to have any huge games with touchdowns, but he is going to get you a lot of catches. So in PPR formats, Jamison Crowder is my big takeaway from this game. Our other big takeaway for fantasy is Le'Veon Bell. Wow, man. 6 carries, bro. 6 carries. Now, he did go off with a hamstring injury. This is important to note because he might not play next week. I'm not sure I like Bell's outlook for the year at all after this showing. I don't know how much of this hamstring injury is really just issues he's having with the coaching staff or issues the coaching staff is having with him. But I don't like Le'Veon's outlook. He had 6 carries. Gore had 6 carries. This is not a backfield I want anything to do with. Le'Veon is still the guy for the year that I want if I have to take one of them. Because I do think when he starts playing from his hamstring injury, at least he should be able to get involved. But he didn't get a lot of targets. He didn't get a lot of looks. So there's not a whole lot of fantasy assets on this Jets team I want at all. Literally, the only player on the Jets I'm even remotely interested in is Jamison Crowder and maybe the tight end Herndon, who got 6 targets, which was the next leading target getter on the team at 6. Darnold looks absolutely terrible. He's poo-poo. They need a new quarterback. And so I don't trust this offense. So big takeaway, the Jets are atrocious. I think they finished last. I think they finished dead last this year. And I want nothing to do with these guys in terms of fantasy. Moving on to one of the wildest, most interesting offenses and quarterbacks to watch, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Man, this guy, if you want him to be great, you can make an argument he was great this week. If you want him to be terrible, you can make an argument he was terrible this week. This guy is so much fun to watch as a fan. And he's so good and so bad all at the same time. It's crazy. For fantasy purposes, though, however, which is what we're talking about, he was very good. Josh Allen went 33 for 46 for 312 yards. He had another 57 yards on the ground. He had 3 total TDs, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown for a pretty large fantasy day. Very good fantasy outing for Allen as long as he rushes the ball 14 times like he did this game, which I don't expect every week. But if he's rushing it 10 times a game and averaging 5 yards carry, getting 50 yards of extra production on the ground, that's huge for fantasy. It's another Lamar Jackson-esque type thing that you definitely just have to take into account, whether he's accurate or not, because he really does make some really bad throws. So our targets for this game, for this team, John Brown got 10 targets, Stephon Diggs got 9, Beasley got 7, and Singletary got 7. Those were the target leaders. There was a lot of action going around. I do think John Brown is the guy I want in here, even though Stephon Diggs looked really good. I mean, they both should have fantasy value here because Josh Allen's just got a hell of an arm on him, and they are both deep threats. So those guys are going to be going back and forth, but I like the upside on both of them. I'm not as crazy about Cole Beasley. I don't think he's going to get 7 targets a game. He could. He's the slot guy. But I don't, for fantasy purposes, I don't want Cole Beasley. Now, Singletary getting 7 targets is huge for PPR. Huge for PPR. 7 targets is a lot for a running back. Now, what I would like to note, though, is that Singletary carried it exactly the same amount of times as Zach Moss. 9. Singletary got 9 carries. Zach Moss got 9 carries. But Singletary was way more involved in the passing game. However, that backfield is a situation to monitor because Zach Moss looked pretty good on the ground. He is probably going to be their primary guy as the year goes on. I think he's going to take over the early down work, and Singletary is going to be more of a third down, long distance, scat back kind of guy, which is fine for his value in PPR, but I don't think you're going to get the bang you wanted when you drafted him out of the 5th or 6th round. So, rough for Singletary on that note, but he did get 7 targets, which is encouraging. But this was against the Jets, where they just had a million chances on offense. I mean, these guys, they had so many chances. That's another reason Allen did so good. And then I'm tempering my expectations on Josh Allen is because they were playing the Jets, who are just really, really bad. Dawson Knox, people were hyping him up. Tight end, he only got 3 targets. So that's also something to note. So that's kind of a recap on the Bills. Looks like a promising offense. Or the Jets are just that bad at defense. Maybe both. This is one we got to monitor. Monitor the backfield situation carefully there. Moving up. The Chicago Bears. The Bears. The Bears. So what do we think about the Bears? Okay. I don't even want to talk about Mitch Trubisky. He was awful. Mitch Trubisky was absolutely terrible in this game. I'm not even going to get into his stats. Just, they're bad. You don't want Trubisky. Foles is getting this job probably. Trubisky's hot garbage. Montgomery carried the ball 13 times for 64 yards. Cohen carried it 7 for 41. So this was a little bit of an even split backfield. Looking at the targets, Robinson got 9 targets. Miller got 6, and Jimmy Graham got 7. That's my big takeaway here is Jimmy Graham actually got 7 targets this game. That means he's a middling, low-end tight end 1, high-end tight end 2 sort of thing. So Jimmy Graham got a lot of targets. Allen Robinson's going to be productive regardless of who's under center. He didn't have a great game because Trubisky's hot freaking garbage. But and Anthony Miller, I don't think there was a huge hype train on him preseason, but until they get somebody who can actually throw the ball in, he's not better than Allen Robinson, and Allen Robinson can't do much with this guy. So don't expect too much from Anthony Miller. I don't know why people were hyping him up preseason. He had an okay stretch towards the end of last year, but he's still just an RB. He's still just the wide receiver 2 on a absolutely terrible pass offense. So Chicago, hot garbage. Take away from that game, I don't want anybody on this offense. Maybe Allen Robinson, and that's it. It's literally the only person I want on this offense is Allen Robinson. And worth monitoring now for sure, Jimmy Graham, because he got some targets. I'm ready to see Nick Foles in this offense. I'm ready to see what they can do with him. Get Trubisky out of there. Trubisky is garbage. Sorry, Chicago. I'm sorry y'all have to deal with that. The Lions. So the Lions, and I want to emphasize this as I get into the Lions. This is the Lions without Kenny Golladay. That's huge. The entire offensive identity is changed without Kenny Golladay. So all of our takeaways from the Lions are to be taken with a grain of salt for the most part because their best offensive player was out of this game. So Stafford went 24 for 42, 297, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Stafford did okay, I suppose. Actually, he really didn't. He threw for 300 and a touchdown, which isn't terrible. But he went 24 for 42. His efficiency was really bad. Was without his main weapon again. So I'm going to let Stafford pass on this because he didn't have Golladay. So I'm going to give Stafford a pass and say it was an okay effort without his main guy. DeAndre Swift got hurt, bro. 3 carries, Adrian Peterson had 14 carries. Kerryon Johnson had 7 carries. Adrian Peterson had 14 carries. Did I mention Adrian Peterson had 14 carries? What is going on, Matt Patricia? I get he's Adrian Peterson, but the dude's like my age now. Like he's just, like he doesn't have those prime bones in his body anymore. He's not a young guy. So I'm not really sure what was going on here. I know DeAndre Swift went down and got hurt, but you still have Kerryon Johnson, who's a very, serviceable back. He was last year. So I'm not really sure where this Adrian Peterson 14 carries came from. To me, that blew my absolute mind. Something worth monitoring. I don't want to touch the Lions' backfield situation. It's too unpredictable at this point. But Adrian Peterson might be worth a speculative add in your leagues in case they're just like, hey, we got the new Barry Sanders. Let's just run with him. And Adrian Peterson finds the fountain of youth again. You never know. Worth an add if you have the bench space available. So targets here without Galladay were interesting. Marvin Jones had 8. Danny Amendola had 7. T.J. Hawkinson had 5. And Quintez Cephas had 10. Quintez Cephas had 10 targets. Who the fuck is Quintez Cephas? I get Kenny Galladay was out. Matter of fact, I was encouraging everyone I knew to start Marvin Jones and T.J. Hawkinson on their daily fantasy teams because that was who Stafford was going to have to. Who the fuck is Quintez Cephas? 10 targets? Look, I'm not rushing out to pick this guy up off of waivers. However, if you're light at wide receiver and you think Galladay might be out for a little while, absolutely worth a speculative pickup. Because if Galladay's out, apparently Stafford likes to throw this guy. Who knew? I didn't know. I never heard the guy. Never heard of the guy. So that was an interesting thing from the Lions without Galladay. Hawkinson did go 5 for 5, so he looks like he's going to be a good tight end play this year. Jones did have 8, but yeah, so a lot of interesting things here from a unpredictable Detroit Lions offense that we can't really read too much into until we see more. Moving on. The Packers. Aaron Rodgers is back. I almost just put a picture of Aaron Rodgers up here because Aaron Rodgers is back, y'all. This dude threw 32 for 44. Male in the efficiency. Not bad, though. Pretty good efficiency. 364 yards. 4 touchdowns. That's Al Bundy. Al, the steamroller Bundy style numbers. This dude put up 4 TDs. First game of the season. Aaron here to play, baby. And while we're going to piggyback off that, we're going to talk about the guy I think is going to lead the league this year in receptions, and probably receiving yards, and probably receiving touchdowns. Davante Adams. Y'all woke a sleeping giant in Aaron Rodgers when y'all drafted Love Green Bay. This guy's here to play now. He peppered Adams with targets. 17 targets for Davante Adams. The next highest on the team was Aaron Jones and Marquez Valdez-Scantling with 6. Alan Lazard, who was kind of the preseason darling, he actually only got, I believe, 5 targets. No, 4 targets for Alan Lazard. So, our takeaways here, Davante Adams, wide receiver numero uno for the year, probably, if he stays healthy. Aaron Rodgers, probably going to finish top 6 or 7 quarterbacks for sure. Lazard, and MVS, also worth noting. MVS looked more like Aaron Rodgers' number 2 than Alan Lazard did. This is interesting because if Aaron Rodgers has a bombastic year, people start keying in on Davante Adams. You may want whoever number 2 receiver in Green Bay is. Alan Lazard is probably already owned in your league. MVS is probably not. Valdez-Scantling, worth a speculative look from waivers this week, for sure. Looking at their rushing, Aaron Jones carried the ball 16 times for 66 yards. That's about 4.5 yards a carry. He had 1 TD. He also had 6 targets 4 catches. Aaron Jones is going to look like a solid RB1 this year if this game is any indication. He's involved in, especially in PPR, he's involved in the passing game and he's involved in the rushing game. So the huge takeaway here for me was Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, though, man. Them the dudes, bro. Them the dudes of week 1. So definitely, I think this is going to keep up, and it'll be a theme a lot this year that Devontae Adams has huge weeks over and over and over again. So take that for what it is. Minnesota Vikings. So our takeaways here: Kirk Cousins, he went 19 for 25, great efficiency clip. Only for 256, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Cousins looked okay. Dalvin Cook, 12 carries for 50 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he only had 2 targets. Excuse me. And that's interesting to note. We need to note that Dalvin Cook only had 2 targets. Part of this guy's PPR fantasy appeal is his passing game work. So the fact he only got 2 targets does sketch me a little, considering he only carried it 12 times. We know he's unhappy with his situation there. So it is interesting to note. It's also interesting to note that Alexander Mattison carried the ball 6 times for 50 yards. That is roughly an 8.5 or 8.25 yard clip. So Mattison looked good on the ground, and Mattison was targeted more in the passing game 4 times. Madison is definitely a handcuff you want to own. He is showing slight standalone value, but only as like a desperation flex. But Madison is definitely a guy you want to own because the situation with Cook, we know he's fragile. We know he is what it is, but Madison could end up getting work if Cook goes out. So definitely something to monitor with Dalvin Cook. Thielen led the team with 8 targets. He had 6 catches for 110. Nobody else had more than 4 targets on this team. This does look good for Adam Thielen's outlook in that a team that even doesn't throw a bunch should provide him with 7 to 11 targets a game. Thielen also had, obviously, a pretty good fantasy day as far as touchdowns. So Thielen, Cook, these were the guys you wanted preseason. Nothing much changed. They had pretty good days. Though Cook's involvement in the passing game is something to note. The Dolphins. So the Dolphins. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. Just an awful day for Fitz. This is probably going to go to Tua sooner than later, especially if this is any indication. Worth noting, the Patriots' defense is very good, which is why I was advising people not to start Devontae Parker or any of the Dolphins' receiving threats this week. Because, Stephon Gilmore and the Patriots' defense is just real. You don't need Tom Brady to play defense. So, we knew Miami was going to struggle. So, I'm trying not to read too much into this because they were up against an excellent defense. They have a bad offense. The big takeaway is their backfield, man. Matt Breida with 5 carries. Jordan Howard with 8. And Myles Gaskin with 9. So, people are like, who do you want, Breida or Howard? Breida or Howard, and then in comes Myles Gaskin to outcarry both of them. I don't understand Miami. I don't understand what they're doing. I don't understand if Myles Gaskin is someone you want. Honestly, I don't even know. Is he worth a speculative ad? Probably, because running backs are so light already this year anyway. They're not a whole lot of quality ones. And if he runs away with a starting job, I'll take any starting running back if they're getting the bulk of the volume, even if they're on a team like Miami. So, worth a speculative ad if you have roster space. I'm not dropping anybody good for Myles Gaskin, but worth monitoring. If you invested in early round picking Matt Breida, you look dumb. I wasn't touching him preseason. I told you not to touch him preseason, and you did it anyway. And that's your bad. Shouldn't have drafted Matt Breida even in the 10th round. Sorry. Shouldn't draft any of Miami's running backs, quite frankly. So, terrible. They're just terrible. They're what we thought. Looking at their targets, Preston Williams got 7, Parker got 4, Gesicki got 5, Myles Gaskin again got 4. I don't like anybody on this team. I guess Devontae Parker has some value. Preston Williams has some value. Myles Gaskin has just become a blip on the radar of I mean, even Kenyon Drake had a few good games for these guys when he was their workhorse back. So who knows? Miles Gaskin. I don't know. I'm not running out to get him, but if I had a team where it was just really, really bad, yeah, maybe so. And the team that should have beat them so much worse, but did the Patriots. Our takeaway from here: Cam Newton 15 for 19, only 19 passes, 155 passing yards, no passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 15 carries for 75 yards. So Newton looks like Newton of season 1, maybe of his like early seasons, or maybe like a Lamar Jackson light because he's a little older. He doesn't quite have the speed or elusiveness of Jackson, but he still is quite speedy and quite elusive. What Cam Newton showed yesterday and what Bill Belichick showed yesterday is that the Patriots are a system team, but they play around what they have. That's why Bill Belichick's the best. He plays around what he has. He knows he has a good mobile quarterback who's good at short to intermediate routes, and that's what he has him doing. He doesn't get fancy. Is Cam Newton going to be a superstar this year? I don't know, but he could easily finish in the top 12 if his rushing output continues. Could easily finish in the top 10 or top 12 of quarterbacks. Michelle, 10 carries. Burkhead, 7 carries. White with 5 again. And then you got Damian Harris on IR now. Backfield is muddy. I don't want to touch this backfield. Again, this is a reason running backs are at a premium because you got teams like the Patriots who are going to utilize 3-headed backfields. And for fantasy purposes, you don't really want any of them. Even James White for PPR, you just don't. You look at targets. Edelman got 7. Harry got 6. Nobody else on that team got more than 3. So Edelman is looking to serve as the wide receiver 1 here. He is going to look to get some volume. He is going to be involved. He's not going to have games like he did. He's not going to put up the massive seasons like he did with Tom Brady. But Edelman is going to flirt with our wide receiver 2 numbers this year for sure, for fantasy purposes. So Edelman, great late round pickup for those of you who got him. Good pickup. Newton is going to be targeting him. Excuse me. Moving along. So this one, look, I'm calling them the Redskins, Washington football team, whatever. I've called them the Redskins my whole life. I have nothing against the Native American population, but I'm not about changing names for political correctness. I'm just not. Not when it's shit like the Chiefs and the Redskins. Like, I have Native American friends who are not offended by a team being called the Redskins. So I just feel like shit's going too far. That's my political rant for this segment. Whatever. Redskins. Haskins, 17 for 31 for 178. Haskins didn't look good, man. Big takeaway here, Peyton Barber, 17 carries for 29 yards. Why do you give a guy 17 carries if he's only going to make 29 yards out of it? That's not even 2 yards. It's not even 2 yards a carry. This is what we expected from Peyton Barber his entire career. So anybody who's all excited that he got 2 touchdowns needs to temper those expectations. The dude averaged less than 2 yards a carry. He got some goal line junk stuff, and they didn't use him too much. But whatever. I'm not the coach of that team. I'm not going to tell him that Gibson is a far more talented back and they should be using him. Gibson, 9 carries for 36 yards, 4 yards a carry. Barber got less than 2 yards a carry. That's over double Barber's production on a carry-by-carry basis. It's not hard to see. Gibson's the guy you want here, but it is frustrating to watch Peyton Barber vulture 2 of his touchdowns. I personally don't have any stock in Gibson this year on any of my main fantasy leagues. That's not to say I wouldn't want him. As a matter of fact, I'm judging. It's so funny. Peyton Barber scored 2 touchdowns, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with Peyton Barber. He's terrible. Terrible. So, yeah, give me Gibson. McKissick only had 3 carries. Targets, Logan Thomas had 8. Terry McLaurin had 7. Inman had 5. I am disheartened by McLaurin's production here. He was supposed to have a big game here. Haskins is really bad, though. So McLaurin is the only guy I really want on this entire offense. I would want Gibson maybe for later in the year, maybe. But McLaurin is the only guy worth having. and he did get out targeted by Logan Thomas. So I'm not real optimistic about this team, even though they pulled off a miraculous showing week 1. These guys didn't look good. Nothing about this team looked good. And literally, Terry McLaurin is the only guy I want. And he's even probably like a low end wide receiver 2 now because Dwayne Haskins is just shut shit. You have better quarterbacks backing up Dwayne Haskins. I get where front offices are like, we have to make this work because we wasted an early pick on him. But you don't have to make it work. Dwayne Haskins has done nothing in his NFL career to make you think he's a starting NFL quality quarterback. Get one of the other guys in so that McLaurin can have some value this year for those of us who drafted him and believe in him and are going to continue to play him on DFS because he's going to be criminally underpriced. So that's where we are with Washington. Redskins. The Eagles. Okay, Philly. So Wentz went 24 for 42 for 270, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He didn't look good in this game, y'all. Wentz did not look good in this game. I'm not super impressed by him. He has nobody to throw to, in fairness to him. But, yeah. So Boston Scott, who you should have been big on this week because Miles Sanders was out, he carried it 9 times for 35 yards. Corey Clement carried it 6 times for 19 yards. You don't want anybody in this backfield other than Miles Sanders, who is going to be questionable again this week. So that's kind of a situation. And another reason that running backs are so so shallow right now. So all of you who did the smart thing, picked up Boston Scott and played him, I'm sorry. You did the right thing. But he's just not, like, the Eagles just weren't that good. Wentz didn't look that good. Boston Scott didn't look that good. Anyway, looking at targets for Carson Wentz's 42 passes that he only completed 24 of, Dallas Goedert got 9. Dallas Goedert got 9 targets, caught 8 of them. Jackson got 7. Ward got 7. Scott got 2. Jackson only caught 2 of those 7 targets, though, whereas Goddard caught 8 of his 9. So this looks like a team that's going to be utilizing Ertz and Goddard a lot. So, yeah, you want those tight ends there. It looks like both of them are going to be used, and those are going to be the guys that Wentz can actually hit. But the rest of that team, I mean, I like where Miles Sanders' prospects are for later this year if he can get healthy. Other than that, sorry, Eagles. Y'all don't have much of a chance in this division. Y'all don't look very good. Because y'all were up against a really bad team, and y'all lost. Go my boy John Gruden's Raiders, the Vegas Raiders. So Derek Carr, 22 for 30, 239, 1 TD, no picks. Derek Carr looked like Derek Carr, like the guy who was undrafted in almost every fantasy league because he shouldn't be because he's not that good. However, Josh Jacobs looked like the real deal, the guy that all the hype was about preseason. Everybody was saying he was going to be involved in the pass game. Everybody said he was going to be a true workhorse back. A lot of people were like, I don't know. He ends up going in the middle of the second round, and he's going to turn in RB1 numbers this year. He's a guy that you definitely would have preferred to take in the, late first round or middle of first round for sure. Maybe even early first round. We don't know. He did go 25 carries for 93 yards and 3 touchdowns. 25 carries. Almost 4 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. And I'd like to point out Josh Jacobs also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 targets. That's big for Jacobs. That's big for his fantasy value, especially in PPR. Huge. Josh Jacobs is the guy you want on this Vegas team. Waller got 8 targets. Ruggs got 5. Jacobs got 6. I'm not super excited about this passing team side of this team. You can expect good, moderate production from Waller most of the year. Ruggs will have good games here and there, but he's still a rookie. So I'm not too sold on him yet, but he is, I guess, the receiver there that I would want. But Josh Jacobs is the guy in Vegas, and that's what we learned from week 1. Carolina Panthers. So Teddy Bridgewater, who I have been hard on last year, as a Saints fan. Watching Bridgewater not be very good with the Saints, even though people were like, he's so good. No, he's not. And I think he showed here that he wasn't really good either. I'm sorry. He went 22 for 34, 270, one touchdown, no interceptions. Look, I've never said Teddy Bridgewater wasn't a decent game manager and ball handler. Like, he can control the ball. He's not going to turn it over a bunch, but he's not going to put up great numbers. He's just not. He's not a stud quarterback. He's not. He's an okay, serviceable ball control style game manager quarterback. So for fantasy purposes, I'm not. I don't want anything to do with him. Now McCaffrey toted the ball 23 times for 96 yards. He had 4 targets for 38 yards. He caught two. He has 2 touchdowns. Very good day for Christian McCaffrey. You got exactly what you drafted him for with the first pick. DJ Moore got 9 targets. Robbie Anderson got 8. Curtis Samuel got 8. Very interesting situation there. Bridgewater is known for spreading the ball around. He doesn't have Michael Thomas wasn't Michael Thomas with Teddy Bridgewater. So, DJ Moore's value might get hit a little. Robbie Anderson might have a little increased value. Curtis Samuel might have a little bit increased value. But the problem all around is when it's spread out like that, week to week, it's going to be hard to peg who's going to get the volume. For my money, I'm going to stick with DJ Moore as the top guy on this team and the only passing threat I really want from this team. But it is a situation worth monitoring. Obviously, McCaffrey is going to be the stud on this team. We already knew that, and he showed it once again. The Indianapolis Colts. So Phillip Rivers, 36 for 46, 363, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Rivers, man, 363 on this team, not too shabby. The carries, Taylor got 9, Hines got 7, Mack got 4. Mack is out for the year. Mack is out for the year. Now, here's the thing about Mack being out for the year. From a fantasy perspective, it's not actually that relevant. And what I mean by that is most people were projecting Jonathan Taylor to take that job anyway. He was being drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. Now, I do think this definitely increases his value because it means they're going to use him sooner than expected. And the real thing about Jonathan Taylor I'd like to point out was he got 6 targets in this game. So Phillip Rivers likes to target his backs, and they're going to use Taylor in the passing game. Matt going down has exponentially increased Taylor's value early season, though I do think Taylor was a good play all year anyway, like for the whole year. But now he'll get that early. Target share. Paris Campbell, 9 targets. Hilton got 9 targets. And again, Jonathan Taylor got 6. Hines had 8. So Nyheim Hines, 8 targets out of the backfield. Austin Eckler version 2, Phillip Rivers. Nyheim Hines, definitely worth a look. If anything happens to Jonathan Taylor, he's actually going to be their back. Like their back. And clearly Phillip Rivers is keeping him involved in the passing game. So I do think that Taylor and Hines are going to be splitting carries and snaps, and that they're both good in the pass game. So there's actually going to be some value for both those guys. Phillip Rivers looked okay here. T.Y. Hilton looked okay, I guess. Paris Campbell. I mean, I'm a little less bullish on their receivers than I am on their running backs. Excuse me. But all in all, this was a good debut for Phillip Rivers and the Colts. Even though I think they lost a bad Jacksonville team. Stat-wise for fantasy, they did all right. And there's a lot of interesting takeaways, particularly in their running back position for the Colts. Speaking of the team that was absolutely terrible but still managed to beat the Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Gardner Minshew, 19 for 20. He only threw 20 passes, y'all. 19. He didn't complete 19 of them for 3 touchdowns and no picks. I just can't get behind a guy for fantasy purposes who only throws 20 passes in a game. And I don't think Gardner Minshew's that good to begin with. I really don't. I'm sorry. I mean, this is gonna be, I don't always just agree with the stats. And although Minshew had a good game, I do not like him for the year. I don't think he's going to have a good year, and I don't think he's a very good quarterback. So, I think Jacksonville knows what they have, which is why he only threw 20 passes. Robinson, interesting takeaway here with Fournette getting traded and all of the injuries and COVID-related situations in his backfield. I actually predicted that Chris Thompson was going to see a ton of work, that his relationship with the coaching staff, as well as the fact that Jacksonville's going to be in a negative game script most of the year, should make Chris Thompson the guy you wanted in this backfield. I firmly believed that last week. It still could turn out to be the case. I don't want to completely go against that narrative because of one game. However, I would like to note that, yeah, I mean, I think I want James Robinson based on what I've seen. Undrafted guy, but at least he's a workhorse back. And again, with running backs so thin, if James Robinson's available in your league, pick him up. He shouldn't be available. If he is available, pick him up. Passing wise, man, Keelan Cole led with 5 targets. Chark only had 3 targets. Chenault had 4. Chris Thompson, we're talking about, only 2 targets. Chenault had more targets than DJ Chark. Now, I don't think this is going to be a year-long thing. I do still think DJ Chark is the receiver here in Jacksonville that you want. I'm not going to read too much into week 1 on that. But I just don't think Jacksonville is going to be a very good team. I think this was a fluke week 1. I could eat my words. I'm willing to do that next week if they, or weeks after if they continue to look okay. But I'm just not sold on this Jacksonville team. I don't think they got it, and I don't want anything to do with them. But I would pick up James Robinson if he was available because volume is volume. Cleveland, the team that needs to change their mascot. I almost changed this mascot to a big poop emoji because that's what Cleveland is. They're back to being the Cleveland Poops. Mayfield, 21 for 39. Oh, bro, 50% clip. 189 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Baker Mayfield is shit. Sorry, I said it. Sorry for all you Bakey fans out there. He's not very good. Another huge takeaway here. Kareem Hunt, 13 carries. Nick Chubb, 10 carries. Kareem Hunt, more carries than Nick Chubb. And Kareem Hunt got 6 targets. Kareem Hunt actually looks like the more valuable back here. Who'd have thought? I mean, we knew it was possible, but for PPR especially, Kareem Hunt looks like the more valuable back here. Now, they were getting the shit kicked out of them, so it is possible that Kareem Hunt was just in a bunch because he's in their packages where they're playing from behind. But and that is entirely possible. But definitely looks like it's going to be a 50-50 thing here, which definitely decreases the value for people who drafted Chubb in the 2nd or 3rd round, which I didn't do, but if you did, sorry. And then Hunt, was drafted in like the 10th or 11th or some shit like that. So anyway, big takeaways, Hunt is going to be involved there. OBJ, 10 targets, 3 catches. Dude's a diva. He's demanding that they throw the ball to him. It's messing up this whole offense. There are rumors today that they want to trade him. I think it would be the best thing that the Browns could do is get rid of that dude. He is a cancer to any team he plays on. I'm an LSU fan. I'm supposed to like OBJ. I think he's disgusting. And I don't think he's, he helps any team that he plays for. 6 targets for Hunt. Again, 6 targets for Landry and Hooper. Actually, Hooper only had 2 targets. So those people who were big on Austin Hooper going to this offense, David Njoku actually caught a touchdown. So make what you will of that. I don't want anything to do with the Browns, except for maybe Kareem Hunt. The rest of that team just looks awful, and I want nothing. I don't want to spend another minute talking about it. Baltimore, exciting, super exciting team. So Lamar Jackson, 20 of 25, 275, 3 TDs, only 7 carries for 45 yards on the ground. This guy's a fantasy stud. We knew he would be. We had a pretty good idea he would be. We didn't see too much regression from last year in this game, and he came out against a bad team, arguably, but he came out doing what he does. Ingram, 10 carries for 29 yards. That's less than 3 yards a carry, Mark Ingram. Dobbins, 7 carries for 22 yards. That's just that 3 yards a carry. Dobbins. Interesting thing, though, Dobbins got the short line, short goal work, got 2 TDs. Target share, Marquise Brown and Andrews both had 6 targets. Andrews obviously had 2 TDs. He is going to be a great tight end play this year. Top 5 tight end for sure. Probably top 3 right in there with the Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz sort of thing. And Andrews. Might even make it a top 4 tier now. he might have just made it into that top 4 tier, in my opinion, and become the bottom end of that elite group. So yeah, Snead and Boykin for a piece. The Ravens just look good. They look good. They're going to be a pretty consistent offense, I think. I think you're going to get numbers out of Lamar Jackson. I think this backfield's muddy right now. I'm not really excited about having Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins on my team. Again, they're serviceable, and with as light as running backs are, you might have to play one of them, but I'm not too excited about either of them until one of them emerges with the job. Right now, they were being drafted around the same time. Ingram didn't look good in this one. I think Dobbins has more upside for the year. But until he runs away with that job, it's a sketch start. The Chargers. Tyrod Taylor, 16 for 30, 208. No TDs, no interceptions. I think him and Teddy Bridgewater are just alike. These guys are not going to throw for a ton. These guys are going to be just game manager, ball control guys, nothing for fantasy. The problem is it's going to hurt the fantasy value of guys like, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Hunter Henry. Talking about targets, Mike Williams got 9. He caught 4 of them for 69. Allen got 8 targets, only caught 4 of them for 37. Hunter Henry got 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 73. Eckler with 19 carries for 84 yards. He wasn't as targeted in the passing game. And then you had, interestingly enough, another running back for the Chargers, Mr. Kelly, got 12 carries for 60 yards and a touch. It's 5 yards a carry. That's interesting. Eckler averaged just 4.5. So Josh Kelly is definitely someone to keep an eye on. I don't think he's going to take the job from Austin Eckler, but he is going to be utilized, especially while they have such a mediocre quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't like any of these guys. Even though I sort of got hyped about Keenan Allen, we signed that big extension. So, like, yeah, they're going to use him. Don't know they're going to use him. Eckler looks like he'll have the most of the value here. Other than Eckler, I'm not really sure I want to touch much of this team right now. Hunter Henry getting 8 targets is also very, very encouraging. So that is something else to know. Man, this one makes me sad. The Bengals. I was really hyped on these guys. I'm not gonna lie. I really thought Burrow was gonna come out because he played a pro-style offense in his last year of college. I really thought he was gonna come out and have a little bit better mastery of everything. That being said, the kid went 23 for 36, which is still better than like Baker Mayfield and some of these other kids that are just early into the year from a completion percentage perspective. He had 0 touchdowns. He had in the air. He had 1 interception. He had 8 rushes for 46 yards and a rushing touchdown. The rushing yardage is encouraging. Burrow's a smart kid. I'm not going to write him off just yet after his debut. I think he's got a lot of time to develop, and I think he's got the right mentality and a good skill set for the league. So I'm not writing Joe Burrow off, but I'm not jumping to pick him up off waivers or draft him or anything like that either. Mixon, 19 carries for 69, so his usage is there. He only got 2 targets, so we need to see Burrow targeting him a little bit more for Mixon's value to be what we expected it to be with the first-round selection. We do like the volume of 19 carries, though. That's awesome. They're going to be using him in a workhorse role. Phenomenal. Targeting for the Bengals, AJ Green got 9. Tyler Boyd got 5. CJ Uzomah got 5. Bernard got 5. Ross got 5. Green caught 5 of his 9 for 51 to lead the team. Burrow does spread the ball around. Then we knew this. It does look like AJ Green's actually the guy you want more than maybe Tyler Boyd, even though Boyd has a skill set that fits Burrow's passing style more. It does look like AJ Green is actually the guy you want there, though a wide receiver 3 at best right now until we see more from Burrow. So I'm not really excited about the Bengals offense. Obviously, Mixon's got some value, and I think AJ Green, and to a slightly lesser degree, maybe Tyler Boyd still has value. But until we see more from Burrow, it's going to be tough to trust these guys. Terrific Toms, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Brady, 23 for 36, 239. Uh, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Brady looked like I thought Brady would look. He looked human. So I actually thought he was going to have a pretty good year because he has so many really good weapons in Tampa Bay. But Brady just looked human this game. He didn't look terrible. I like to say he put up the exact same completion percentage as Joe Burrow. They both went 23 for 36. One of them's called the greatest of all time. One of them people are trying to write off from his rookie game. I don't know. I mean, my point is, you can't read too much from Week 1 stats. The New Orleans Saints defense was very good. They are very good. So I'm jury's out on terrific Tom right now for me. I'm not trying to read too much into this game. Say he doesn't have it anymore. I'm not trying to read too much into this game. Say he does have it anymore. Jury's out for me on Tom Brady. I think this was a tough matchup on the road, even though there weren't fans in the dome. I do believe this was a very tough matchup for Tampa Bay, being the Saints had so many returning starters and a lot of them on defense. So Brady did okay. From a fantasy perspective, he did all right. Ronald Jones carried the ball 17 times for 66 yards. It's less than 4 yards a carry. Rojo looks to be the guy they want to get the ball here. Still not sold on that because this was Fournette's first week in Tampa. He had 5 carries. But I do believe he's insanely more talented than Ronald Jones. I think anyone with eyes will be able to decipher that and can determine that. So I think it's only a matter of time, personally, before Fournette takes the job from Ronald Jones in Tampa Bay. Just a guess. Ronald Jones could have the job all year, but I'm not getting too excited about Ronald Jones. Targets. Godwin got 7 targets, 6 catches. Scotty Miller, 6 targets, 5 catches. O.J. Howard, 6 targets, 4 catches. Mike Evans, 4 targets, 1 catch. Makes you a little nervous if you have Mike Evans, for sure. Because Tom Brady does spread the ball around. This was without Gronk getting very involved. This is without, I think they still got Cameron Brate there. You got this new kid, Scotty Miller. You got too many mouths to feed. I don't trust any of that offense because there's just too many mouths to feed. I think Godwin's probably the only guy I really trust on that team, other than Brady, maybe. So that's our takeaways there. Is just a lot of mouths to feed and perhaps not the personnel to support it. So I'm a little concerned about Tampa Bay from a fantasy perspective, and it's a situation worth monitoring to figure out exactly who we want. My boys, the Saints. What do we learn from them? Breeze went 18 for 30. It was not great. 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. Drew Brees. Rushing was the interesting takeaway here. Alvin Kamara, 12 rushes for 16 yards. I repeat, 12 rushes for 16 yards. That is less than 1.5 yards a carry. Latavius Murray, 15 carries, which is more than Kamara had. 48 yards, over 3 yards a carry. Still not great, but way better than Kamara was doing. So this is a rushing situation to monitor. I definitely would advise having Latavius Murray on your bench if you own Alvin Kamara. And Latavius Murray, if he rushes for 15 to 20 yards a game on this offense, it's going to provide standalone value for him. So that's one thing we learned is Latavius Murray might actually have some standalone value because Kamara is not a great in-between-the-tackles rusher. However, let's go to targets. Kamara got 8 targets, which means you're not benching Kamara. Kamara got 8 targets, especially in PPR. 8 targets. He caught 5 for 51. That's 10 points right there in PPR. So we love seeing Alvin Kamara have 8 targets. Now, Jared Cook had 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 80. That's huge. That means Cook is on that next tier of tight ends behind the top 4, and he pretty much looks locked in it there. Mike Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, 5 targets each. Brees spread the ball around. He only completed 18 passes, so it was hard for Michael Thomas to have a 10-catch game. And I do think that's going to be a theme that's going to continue this year, is that the ball is going to get spread around. Don't think Michael Thomas does what he did last year at all. I don't think he has a bad year, but I don't think he has a bad kind of year. Arizona. What do we take away from the Arizona game? Our takeaways from Arizona. So Kyler Murray, 26 for 40, 230, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Um, Kyler Murray looked okay in this one. 230, one touchdown, one pick. He looked okay. He didn't look good. He didn't look bad. He looked meh. He definitely didn't look like a guy you wanted to draft like sixth off the board like he was going in drafts. This guy wasn't doing that. I've never really believed in Kyler Murray. I hate to say it like that. He hasn't shown me anything to make me believe he's a special NFL player. Um, so yeah. That being said, he did add 13 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So if he can keep up this sort of running, my big takeaway from Kyler Murray was his rushing. Dude almost had 100 yards on the ground rushing. So if he carries the ball 10 times a game for fucking 100 yards, yeah, the dude is going to put up the six numbers that you were looking for when you drafted a sixth quarterback off the board. I just don't know that he's going to rush that much every game. Remains to be seen. We'll see. Worth monitoring. Kenyon Drake, 16 rushes for 60 yards. It's respectable. One touchdown. I mean, it's good they gave him 16 carries considering he was in a walking boot last week. So, yeah, I'm okay with Drake's performance here. I do wish he was targeted more. He was only targeted twice in the passing game. And part of Kenyon Drake's value, especially in PPR leagues, is the fact that he gets peppered with targets. So the 2 targets is very concerning. Very concerning. But it's hard to get a lot of targets when DeAndre Hopkins is getting 16 targets. 14 catches for 151. What can I say about D-Hop? I don't necessarily think he continues this pace all year, but I definitely think they just paid the man, so I definitely think he's going to have a productive year. Probably finishes as a top 5 receiver on the year. So I think when you drafted him in the probably second round, even though I thought it was a reach at the time based on what we knew, it looks like they're going to feed him the ball enough to make it an okay pick. The next target leaders on the team were Larry Fitzgerald, Chase Edmonds with 5. Edmonds had TD passing. Drake only got 2 targets. Edmonds got targeted 5 times. Worth monitoring. Chase Edmonds is also showing standalone value, much like Latavius Murray. Though I still think Kenyon Drake's the guy you want here, obviously. But Edmonds is an important handcuff that possibly leaves the realm of handcuff and gets straight standalone value. So yeah. Looks, their offense was up against a very, very, very tough San Francisco defense, and they did good. They won, and D-Hop looks like he's going to be the guy you drafted him to be. Speaking of the Niners, Jimmy G, who's another quarterback that I'm hard on because, quite frankly, I just don't think he's very good. He went 19 for 33, 259, 2 touchdowns. These are not terrible numbers, but you just got to watch the game. I just don't think Jimmy G's that good. Raheem Mostert, 15 carries for 56 yards. Jerick McKinnon, 3 carries for 24. Coleman, 4 carries for 18. So it definitely does look like Raheem Mostert is getting the bulk of the work out of that backfield, which is an important job. It means if you drafted Raheem Mostert semi-early, you're not regretting it as much as you should be right now. Because if you draft a San Francisco running back early, based on what we've seen the last few years, you didn't do a good job drafting. But it turns out it's going to work out for you. Even though you didn't use your brain and you drafted a San Francisco running back way too high, it is going to work out for you. Because I do think Mostert's going to turn out to be okay. And Mostert led the team in targets with 5. He caught 4 of those for 95 in the TD. So Mostert, even though it was, again, very bad to draft him at his ADP, it's going to be okay for you. Kittle, a huge injury. This is big news. He had 4 catches for 44 yards on 5 targets before he went out with his injury. This is going to be something worth monitoring, man. Kittle is the foundation of this offense. And going to be rough to lose that first or second round pick that you spent on him if he goes down for an extended period. Kendrick Bourne was disappointing in this game for me. I was hyping him up because they're just busted at wide receiver right now. They have nobody to throw to. And had you told me Kittle was going to go down with an injury early in the game, I would have said all in on Bourne. But for whatever reason, Jimmy Garoppolo just is a bad quarterback. He doesn't like targeting his receivers. And Kendrick Bourne had 5 targets. McKinnon had 5. Taylor had 5. Kittle had 5. Mostert had 5. Jimmy G just spreads the ball around, and he does it inefficiently and poorly. So, San Francisco offense is poo-poo. Mostert looks like the only guy you want to own here. And again, I'm gonna double down and say I still think it was a poor draft decision if you took him early, but it's gonna be a poor draft decision that pays off for you. So, well played. Um, I still don't. Yeah. Anytime a team has 3 running backs that they're committed to using, I don't want that guy. I don't want any of those guys. Moving along. This is taking longer than I thought. This is taking so much longer than I thought to recap all these teams. I'm sorry. I was expecting it's quicker. We only got like 5 or 6 left, so we're almost there. So we're looking at America's team. America's team they love to hate, Dallas Cowboys. So Dak, the guy that all these analysts are hyping up as the leading passer in the NFL this year, he went 25 for 39 for 266, 1 touchdown, 0 picks, 3 for 30 on the rushing. Dak looked okay. Dak didn't look great. Dak didn't look bad. Dak is not going to lead the NFL in passing this year. I said it. I said it right there. I said it first. I said it. I said it. I'll say it again. Dak is not going to lead the NFL in passing this year. And it's not too, it's not like I'm saying that after one game. It's just I said that before this game. It's not going to happen. He's not overhyped, man. He's overhyped. Overhyped big time. Dude's got some good targets, though. So the best player on this team, in my opinion, Ezekiel Elliott, man. 22 carries, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 4 targets, 3 catches on that, and another TD pass through the air. This is Zeke's team. This is not Dak's team. I don't care who disagrees. This is Zeke's team. Amari Cooper did get 14 targets, which is notable. CeeDee Lamb only got 6, and Michael Gallup only got 5. So Amari Cooper getting 14 targets tells me that Amari Cooper, they're trying to push him into wide receiver 1 status. I don't know why they're trying to force it. I've never thought Amari Cooper was that good. If you watched him with the Raiders, if you've even watched him in college, not that good. He was never that good. So I don't understand some of these teams' needs where they feel like they need to force feed these guys. It could just be some sort of diva mentality complex that Cooper brings with him. I don't know. But he's not good enough to warrant this kind of target share. Not on a team with this many talented targets. So Cooper getting 14 targets for fantasy, I mean, it's something worth monitoring because if they're going to force feed him the ball all year, Cooper finishes as a top 5 wide receiver. But they shouldn't force feed him that much. He's not worth force feeding that much. And but it is worth noting that they did force feed him that much. It's not irrelevant. He caught 10 catches. 10 catches on 14 targets. It's a huge takeaway. Obviously, Zeke and Cooper are the guys you want here. Dak looks okay. Gallup and Lamb. Lamb getting more targets than Gallup is highly surprising. And Gallup is the real big disappointer here, in my opinion. But Dallas looked okay. And they played the Rams. So the Rams, Goff, 20 of 31, 275. No touchdowns, 1 pick. Rushing, Malcolm Brown. 18 carries, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 4 yards a carry for Malcolm Brown. Good job, Malcolm Brown. It's over 4 yards carry. Akers also got involved. 14 carries, only 39 yards. But kid's a rookie. He's got time to grow. It's very promising to see them get him this involved, even though he was struggling. So, yeah, my big takeaways from the rushing attack here. Don't rush to go all in on Brown. Don't rush to assume that Akers won't take over the starting job. However, if Brown's available in your league, this is the last chance you're going to have to pick him up. He has the potential to be a starter on this team the rest of the year. This is a guy who should not be on waivers after this week. He had an okay game. His yards per carry were good. He got targeted 4 times in the passing game. Malcolm Brown looked real, man. I think Akers is more talented for sure, but we'll see how that shakes out. Either way, both Brown and Akers need to be owned, and you need to monitor that situation going forward. In terms of targeting, Robert Woods had 8 targets. Cooper Kupp had 5. Higbee had 4. Brown had 4, and Akers had 1. So Woods getting the target lead with 8 is not surprising to me at all. He caught 6 of those. Kupp had 5, which he caught 4 of. The fact that Goff only completed 20 passes means there wasn't a whole lot to go around here. I do think Woods and Kupp both have okay, and Higbee. They're all going to have good games and bad games, though I do think Woods is actually the guy who's going to be by far the most consistent. and I think Woods is going to have the lowest, the highest floor of these guys. The running back situation is worth monitoring. Like I said, I think you want to own both these guys, and I think Jared Goff's just not very good. The Steelers. So Big Ben, 21 of 32 for 229. He had 3 touchdowns, no picks. Um, Big Ben, pretty efficient this game. I mean, not in terms of super efficient in terms of pass completion, but he didn't throw a ton, and he kept control of the ball. Rushing, John Connor, 6 carries for 9 yards. In comes Benny Snell when Connor goes down. He carries it 19 times for 113 yards. And then Jalen Samuels, only 1 carry. So, big takeaway here is John Connor getting injured, man. How long is he out for? As long as he's out, you want Benny Snell, man. You want Benny Snell. It's a good offense, and you want Benny Snell. As long as John Connor's out. We thought it was maybe going to be Jalen Samuels, but you want Benny Snell. Benny Snell, I think Connor's shown to be kind of fragile, and he's showing that constantly. So Benny Snell is a guy who I think should be owned in all leagues at this point in time, or as of tomorrow. He's my pickup for the week, even though some people are going to say Naheem Hines is their pickup for the week. My personal pickup for the week is going to be Benny Snell. Benny Snell, I think, just has a huge handcuff upside, and we don't even know if Connor's going to play next week. So Snell might have immediate impact being able to start next week. Targets. Juju, 6 targets, led the team. No, Juju did not lead the team. Juju got 6 targets, 6 catches, 2 touchdowns, only 69 yards. Deontay Johnson, 10 targets, led the team in targets, 6 catches for 57. Connor did have 4 targets before leaving the game. We don't know if Benny Snell is going to get those targets if Connor does not play. So Deontay Johnson, 10 targets, Juju 6. I always follow the targets, man. Now, that doesn't mean I think Deontay Johnson's more valuable than Juju, but it does mean Deontay Johnson is definitely someone you need to keep an eye on. Anybody who gets 10 targets, it's a big deal. Especially after he had a rough start to that game, and then it actually kind of turned it around. Last 3 teams, y'all. We're almost there. So we're at the Giants. So our takeaways from the Giants: Danny Dimes, 26 for 41, 279, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Danny Dimes looked okay. Saquon Barkley, 15 carries for 6 yards. The dude averaged less than 1 yard a carry. However, he got 9 targets, and he got 6 catches on those 9 targets. So for PPR, he definitely salvaged your day. Slayton also had 9 targets. He caught 6 of 9. Shepard caught 6 of 6, and Ingram was targeted 7 times, but only caught 2. So those are the guys here: Slayton, Barkley, Shepard, Ingram. I like them in the order of Barkley, Shepard, Ingram, Slayton. I think even though Slayton had the biggest game, I think he has the lowest upside of those 4. And that's what I think about. I'm not really crazy about this offense at all. I think Ingram's going to have – people are kind of hard on him preseason for tight ends, and I think he's easily going to finish in the top 8 tight ends. And then to last night's game, the last game of last night. The Tennessee Titans. So what do we think about these guys? Well, Ryan Tannehill went 29 for 43. He had 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry rushed 31 times for 116 yards. He was targeted 3 times, which is actually good for him. So the rushing leader continues to get the rock. As far as targets go, Davis got 8 targets. Corey Davis got 8 targets, caught 7 of them. A.J. Brown, 8 targets, caught 5 of them. Jonnu Smith, 7 targets, caught 4 of them. Adam Humphries, 7 targets, caught 6 of them. Humphries is obviously the guy I think you don't want here. A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, and Corey Davis all look to be the 3 integral cogs of this offense, along with Derrick Henry. So those are the guys you want to own. I think Jonnu Smith is going to be an excellent tight end play this year. And Corey Davis actually looked pretty damn good. So I think everyone who was rushing to A.J. Brown, just completely mollywhopping him in terms of targets this year, might be in for a rude awakening. And those of you who picked up Corey Davis on waivers last week, or maybe even he's still available this week, definitely worth the pickup. Guy looked good. Looked like the Corey Davis we were expecting him to be out of college. And finally, the Denver Broncos. Drew Lock, 22 of 33, 216, one touchdown. Drew Lock, it's interesting. He looked better than I thought he would, but he looked worse than I heard people saying he would. Because I was expecting nothing from him, and he looked okay, but other people were expecting a lot of him, and he didn't look like a lot. So, Melvin Gordon had 15 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. This was after Philip Lindsay got hurt. Also, a situation worth monitoring uh, because I do think it's going to be a 50-50 split when Lindsay's there. And Melvin Gordon is going to be a workhorse when he's not. So Melvin Gordon got an upgrade this week with Lindsay hurt if he stays hurt for an extended period of time. Jerry Jeudy, 8 targets, caught 4 of them. Noah Fant, 6 targets, caught 5 of them. Tim Patrick, 5 catches, 5 targets, caught 4 of them. This is without Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's going to cut into that Tim Patrick line and Jerry Jeudy line more than anything else. I think Fant is an excellent tight end this year that you were able to draft super late. I think Jeudy is looking like he's going to be that team's number 1 or 2 guy, so I like his target share there. And Cortland Sutton, we'll see how he is when he comes back, man. Again, I'm not sold on this offense. I've never been sold on this offense or Drew Lock. So I don't think there's a whole lot of upside plays here. Right now, the guy I want to own on this team is Melvin Gordon, as long as Lindsay's hurt, and maybe Noah Fant, as weird as that sounds. But other than that, nothing too exciting here. So that covers most of your week 1 stuff, and I hope that based on what we've learned today and me kind of recapping some of the stats for you and letting you know what to look for, you know kind of who to go targeting on waivers this week. Anytime a guy gets injured, you definitely want to make some of those priority ads. So again, I just want to thank you guys for stopping by the Ultimate Fan Guy. It was a pleasure bringing you guys some statistics, some knowledge for the week. That way you can get a jump tonight, get on the waiver wire, get the guys you need, because there's a lot of big stuff that happened this week, so it's really important to stay on top of that. So I hope you enjoyed it. Much love. Keep winning those fantasy belts. Keep winning those fantasy rings. Keep stopping by the Ultimate Fan Guy for all of your up-to-date fantasy football and pop culture sort of knowledge. And good luck out there on the gridiron this week. Go get them and make those ads you need to make today.